Now, a lot of you've been here with us since day one, and you remember our very first interview we had was a guest across the pond in London, England, or just outside of London,
Yeah.
England. Well, I'll tell you right now, it's the exact polar opposite. My neighbor, practically, who's just like 20 minutes from me, is joining us on the program. Please welcome our good friend from CascadiaDispatch.com, our good friend Casey. How you doing, Casey?
Good. How are you doing?
Now you're out in Beaverton, aren't you?
I am out in the west side. The west
You know,
side of Portland.
it's funny. I was raised out there. I grew up in Tigard, spent the first 40 years of my life in Tigard, and realized that I can't afford to continue living in Tigard.
Tiger's gotten spendy.
Tigard wants to be Tualatin so bad.
Yes.
It
yes.
just wants to be Tualatin, and it's just
Yes. Beaverton also spendy. All of the places are spendy.
everything's spendy. So I live out in Oregon City now, and it's actually I almost live in Malino, if you know where that is.
I do. We have some family that used to live out in that kind of general area, so I am actually quite familiar with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So it's really good to finally talk to a prepper with from my neck of the woods. And I should mention, Casey will be a speaker at the Northwest Survival Expo, and you'll be able to follow that information at nwsurvivalexpo.com. Now, I want to talk about your website, Cascadia Dispatch.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go from just prepping, like people do, to actually gathering information and sharing it with people?
So it was kind of a transition where I was absolutely not a prepper. I was in no way a prepper. I was prepared for nothing, I think. And I read the article about the Cascadia earthquake that was in the New Yorker. I was actually traveling up to Seattle for business and read it and realized that if this were to happen, that all of the bridges on my way home would be gone and my family would be hungry and all of the disastrous scenarios you think about. And so that kind of changed my opinion of what I needed to do and how I needed to get prepared and what we needed for our family. And I'm an analyst by trade, and so I began analyzing the internet down to what I consider the bottom of the internet, but you never really get to the bottom. But started doing that. And as I started doing things like getting survival food and water and sleeping bags and tents, we had no tents, we had no sleeping bag, none of those things. About the time I started doing some of this stuff, my friends started asking me questions about it. And when I went camping for the first time in my life at nearly 40 years old, then a lot of people started asking questions and wanted to make sure I was okay. And was I going through a midlife crisis or what was happening? And because of all of those questions, I felt like putting them together on some sort of a blog or a social channel or something so that people could access them whenever they wanted to would be really helpful. Again, as an analyst, I've worked with big national brands and global brands for years and dealt with the creative people and marketing. So this was also kind of from a job perspective, something I had always thought it would be fun to do, but never really had a reason to do it. So I kind of got to put all of that together and experiment and, do the logos and make the posts and do the research and figure it all out and then put it together. So then the blog, we launched with the blog a couple of years ago and launched with Facebook. We did a Facebook group, Instagram, all of the fun socials. And then about a year or a year and a half ago, I started a YouTube channel. And now the YouTube channel has really become kind of the place that people go to for our stuff. I still try and post. I'm way behind in posting on our website, but I do try to post the videos on our website. For the most part, people go to our YouTube channel, and that's where they will watch the videos and get the information and comment and be part of the community there.
Fantastic. So I always tell people, when you want to start watching prepping videos, to not watch prepping videos because most prepping videos are A, crap, B, clickbait, 3, conspiracy theory, or 4, politics.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the bottom of the internet. The bottom of the internet is people talking about politics.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I always tell people to watch camping videos if they want to kind of start learning it, because there's a lot of crossover between camping and prepping. With that said, there are exceptions to the rule, and your YouTube channel is an exception to the rule because you're actually talking about stuff that's actually helpful to people. Do you have a specific interest in prepping, or was it, like you said, just that you had an awakening while reading an article on a plane?
Yeah, it was kind of an awakening, and then my mind just started racing, and once it starts going, it doesn't really stop. I try to be a fairly strategic person in life, and so it became a lot of, if this happens, a lot of, we've seen disasters happen and people
Sure.
survive, and that's fine. But I think I could probably survive better if I thought about it. And I could help my family survive better if I thought about it. So I need to think about it so that that can happen. And that spilled out into extended family, community, friends, all of that. Like, how do we make it so that we're all in a better spot, and we can make it through? And so to your point about camping videos, yes, there's lots of people that always ask me, hey, what do I need for gear? And I'm like, well, if you're camping, you're 50, 75% of the way there because you've got a lot of the stuff. If you are like me and you never went camping and you have none of those things, then you are way behind. So I think that's a thing. My Cascadia Dispatch, our tagline is prepping for non-preppers. And it's because it's, prepping and disasters don't care about who you voted for or what you believe in or anything like that. Like, the earthquake is going to take out everybody's house on the block, no matter what they wanted. And so everybody should be thinking about being prepared. You don't need a tinfoil hat. Tinfoil hats are very last season.
Yes.
But you can do things in life in general that will help you get prepared. Get an emergency fund, have some extra food, think about what you would eat, meal planning. Like, there's lots of that sort of stuff that you can do to make yourself and your family more prepared, without needing camo and face paint and living in the woods.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. If I've always thought, if I knew that was an option when I was in my 20s, I would literally have purchased a motor home, and I would have been living in the woods in that nomadic lifestyle that I see people do on the YouTubes.
Oh yeah.
Today, it's not very practical when you got a wife and 3 kids, and I own a limousine business, so chances are of me doing that in the woods is pretty slim.
Yeah, the idea of we talk about homesteading a lot, and that it would be, if we had done this 12 or 13 years ago before we had kids and everything else, then maybe we would have thought about, instead of settling down in suburbia, maybe settling down, in Eastern Oregon or something like that, or getting some farmland or whatever. In the meantime, I just have 2 chickens and a bunch of garden planters in our backyard now. At some point we might do that in the future, but.
Yeah, we're actually purchasing 5 acres in Southern Oregon, and we don't know what we're going to do with it yet, but we're purchasing it. Part of me is like, well, if I could get some money, I'll get one of those underground bunkers you see in the movies, and it'll be my, my place where I'll hide out with the family when Armageddon, quote unquote, when Armageddon comes.
Yeah.
Chances are I'll probably just sit there and the bobcats will just walk through it, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
That'll be a place.
It'll
be a place for us. Yeah, it'll be a place for us to camp,
Yeah.
probably when the time comes. But part of me thinks maybe I'll turn it into a campground because 5 acres is pretty sizable. You can put a respectable.
Yeah, that's a good amount.
Yeah, you can put a.
Yeah, we've thought about doing something similar of getting 5 or 10 acres somewhere, and worst case scenario is just using it as our annual campsite for family vacations and that sort of stuff.
Something,
Yeah.
anything. I don't know what we'll end up using it for. When you prep, you live in, I know Beaverton well.
Yeah.
I've worked there. I've driven through it. It is the picture of suburbia.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, there's parts of it that look like Ozzie and Harriet's. you know, and there's parts of it that look very far away from what I was in here.
Yeah.
But it's a big town. It's a big suburbia, but it is as suburbia as you can get in the Portland area.
Yeah.
So it's good that we're actually speaking with a suburbanite, you know, literal suburbanite when it comes to actual prepping.
Yeah.
As a suburbanite, as someone who helps people kind of get started in this, what are the first 3 things you say to people who may be your neighbor who want to get started?
Go to Cabela's.
Really?
Yeah,
Cabela?
No, I'm just kidding. I think the first thing is you have to figure out what you're doing. You have to figure out what you're going to prepare for and like why you're prepping, because everything else comes out of that. If you just think I need to go get water and food, but really what you're really concerned about is a job loss or, you know, in some case, an EMP or something. I mean, there's all different types of things that may or may not be the thing you need to prepare. I mean, we all saw with the pandemic, everyone ran and bought toilet paper. Well,
toilet paper.
The last time I checked, I have not seen any research that says that COVID-19 creates some sort of bowel situation for everyone. There's lots of issues it creates, but I haven't seen that being a thing. But I think everyone just panics and buys stuff. So, you know, we have a store of toilet paper, but we do it because in case there's an earthquake and we can't get to the store or anything else, we want to have enough to get us through.
Sure.
So the first thing is figure out what it is you're preparing. Is it the earthquake? Is it a fire? Is it what? Second is who are you going to prepare for? Is it just your family? Are you thinking about neighbors too, or extended family? Are you going somewhere, or are people coming to you? Like, what does that look like? So you know how much you need of everything. How many supplies do you know, how much food, how much water, times how many people, and you can figure it out that way. And then the other thing is just to is to start. A lot of people, you know, think about, well, I have to do all of it at once. And you don't. You just start doing a little bit every week, whether it's buy an extra, you know, package of green beans when you go to the store, or, you know, buy a gallon of water every time you go to the store or something. Just do that, and then you can work on skills and learning and figure it out. But a lot of people, I think, they don't want to get their toe in the water because they feel like prepping is this huge, massive, overwhelming topic. And if I start to prep, then all of these things I need to know. And in reality, it's like, you'll figure all of that other stuff out, but it's getting in the mindset that it's something that's important and a priority to you, so that when you do go to the grocery store, you are thinking about some of these other things.
Sure. You mentioned the earthquake, and that's probably the number one reason I prepare myself.
Yeah.
In fact, I recently read an article that stated that there is a 30% chance at any given moment the Portland area could have an earthquake. And that could be, you know, so small that you barely feel it, all the way to the big one that they keep talking about ad nauseum, endlessly, every sweeps period on TV. I am years old, and I have only felt one earthquake in Portland in my life, and that was the big spring break earthquake back in the early 90s.
Yep.
Were you in the area back then?
I was sleeping, and
yeah, me too.
I had a dream that aliens were taking computers and bashing them against the wall, which was apparently the noise and the shaking is what my mind created as a thing. And so then I woke up and heard, oh, we had an earthquake, and, you know, it was big, and that was a thing. So that's the closest I've gotten. But again, I think there's something interesting in when we talk about the big one in earthquakes. A lot of people's experience of earthquakes is that spring break earthquake at least in the Oregon, the Portland area, which didn't do a whole lot of damage. No. So it's a little bit difficult to think about what it would be like if there was a gigantic earthquake and if it took out the entire West Coast, for example.
Sure. You know, I don't remember how big it was, but I think it was around 4.2 or something.
Yeah.
And I called a friend of mine who lived in San Francisco at that time, and he's all like, dude, we don't even wake up during those. What are you guys talking about?
Yes.
You know, it was absolutely nothing to him. The other things, you know, we prep not just for the earthquake, you know, we prep for a variety of things. And for us, we got very lucky. One of our bug out vehicle, for example, our bug out vehicle is a motorhome. I wish it was
Okay.
in the limo, but the limo takes up a lot of gas and there's not a lot of room for water.
True.
But we
True.
do have a motorhome,
Okay.
which we were very fortunate to actually own. And that reminds me, I got to put almost $700 into it in the next couple of weeks to replace the master cylinder on the brakes. Oh God, that's killing me. I got to wait till our tax return comes in.
Yeah.
Any heck, it actually came in pretty handy for us in September because during those wildfires, as you know, we live out in Malino. There was almost Malino.
Yeah.
There was a big wildfire that actually happened a mile from my house. A car
Oh,
blew
wow.
up, of all things.
Good grief.
And yeah, it
It's
was
like a
actually
Die Hard moment.
dude. No joke. It was a motorhome was pulling a Jeep, and the Jeep caught fire. And man, I should send you the video of it because there's actually a video of when the fire hit the motorhome's propane tank. Boom, it went up in the air. But because it was so dry, it went up and burned down these houses that were in the general vicinity. They ended up evacuating the whole area.
Yeah.
And so we just got in the motorhome and just booked it.
Yeah.
And which was pretty much what everyone else was doing. Malala was, they took, some people were taking their horses off their horse farm and they put it in the local grocery store parking lot. And the grocery store's like, dude, you're fine. Just
Exactly. No one's going to take your horses. Leave them
no one's
here.
gonna take your horses.
We're all leaving too. We don't care.
And yeah, they were very open about having the horses there because you, for a long time, could drive by and actually see horses just walking around in a parking lot like it was nothing. But it was just a lot of stuff like that. And the fires never really ended until the rain started.
Yeah,
because it was just too
well, and
too massive.
I think in our area, I think Oregon doesn't. Every once in a while, we get the quarter-inch of snow that shuts down the world, and every once in a while there's a flood in a specific couple of rivers or something.
Yeah.
But we're lucky that we don't have persistent threat of kind of seasonal dangers and disasters like hurricanes or tornadoes or California's big wildfires every single season. And I think this has been one of those interesting times, especially in our area, where we came out of horrible wildfires and then into COVID, or we were in COVID and we had the horrible wildfire. I don't remember exactly. All the disasters blended together in 2020.
There was a fire and then the COVID and then there was another fire.
Exactly. They were all.
I had a full head of hair before it all started.
Yeah, the COVID was on fire. It was a whole thing. But I think there's been a lot of, in our area, being touched by disaster. And so now there's definitely a lot more interest in, okay, how do we prepare for these sorts of disasters? I think there's an education piece in reminding people that those aren't the only kind of disasters. And it's not just natural disasters. There's day-to-day disasters that can happen. And so, if you plan for the big ones, you're also prepared for the smaller ones. So, you're prepared for the earthquake, but then you're prepared for the power outage and the snowstorm, as well, sort of a thing. So it kind of ladders all up and down.
The worst power outage I personally experienced, I remember I was in my 20s. I was living with my mother and we had a huge storm come through that actually ripped the roof off of the Izzy's Pizza in Newport. And the power was out for 3 days. And after halfway through day 2, man, it was like Little House on the Prairie. And mind you, this was pre-internet.
Oh, yeah.
But as soon as the sun goes down, there's literally nothing to do. And so I always tell people one of the things you should prepare for is, get a deck of cards or a game of Monopoly or something like that sitting up, to get it set up so you can actually do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the power goes out. I mean, you may have your meat safe, you may have your water and all that, but if you're just sitting around staring at each other, that mental game gets to you after a while.
Yeah, the morale component, and especially if you have kids, lots of people get, hey, we've got emergency food for, everything, and they forget that like having a couple of chocolate bars for your kids or something, like it's going to make a big difference and keep them in a good mood because you're going to be dealing with the stress of the disaster. They're going to be dealing with the stress of the disaster, but you're also going to have to deal with their stress in the disaster. So having something to kind of take their mind off of it will help you to be able to focus on other things.
Right.
I think also, there's just, the games, cards, travel games, things like that. You can put in a bug out bag or you put in a special tote in the garage. So, they're easy to get to or something. I think all of that is really helpful.
Yeah, it it was a real brutal time. And this was, you know, the early 90s. We didn't have these solar generators we have today where you can hook up some lights at least and, you know, maybe a TV.
Yeah.
And this was the dark ages when we only had 50 channels to watch.
Oh,
I mean, that's brutal.
yeah. We only had 50 channels.
We only had 50
Only
channels and
50?
a
Oh,
Nintendo Entertainment System, and that was it. Oh,
did you
my
have,
God.
did you have the remote control too, or was that
You know,
on the
we had a
horizon?
remote. We did have a remote control, and this thing was ancient, and it's probably still working. Anyway, getting back to what we were talking a little bit off air, that you mentioned you have a cat who's not doing so well.
Yes.
Health wise.
Yep.
We have a cat as well, and she's just about 18 years old, and we worry about her health, but she seems to have more energy than I do.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a pet owner, how do you prepare for your pet? I mean, obviously you got to have food and cat litter. Is there anything else people kind of forget?
Well, so I think it depends on your animal. I mean, you prepare for a dog a little bit differently than you would prepare for a cat. And, you know, like if somebody had a bird or something, I don't know necessarily how you prepare for birds and fish or something like that. But, you know, for us, we have kind of the emergency travel carrier. So if we needed to leave in a hurry, we can throw her in, and it already has a water bowl, a food bowl, bags of food, you know, a couple of toys, you know, some cat litter. That's all ready to go. But then we also, if we're, for example, bugging in, we have a special little play yard that we got, that I think it's meant for dogs, but we got it for our cat. And the idea is we could put her in there, and she would actually have some space to run around and play if she wanted to. We could set it up kind of like a little house for her if she wanted. But she could be comfortable there. And then if we needed to leave, it's all collapsible. We throw it in the car and we go.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah. So I think some of it is just knowing your pet and, you know, the size of your pet. You know, if you have a big dog, that's a whole different proposition as far as kennel size and all of that. So you probably want to think through that, both if you need to leave and also if you're staying. What does that look like for any of your pets?
When we bugged out for the fire, I was joking with my daughter, and I said, well, we got to bring the cat. Well, of course we got to bring the cat.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens if we run out of meat? We got to have the cat. She has not forgiven me for that.
Yeah, you're never going to live that one down. That's yeah. When she's putting you in the home later on, like, she's going to remind you of that.
She's going to remind me of that. Yeah. And I already told her, you know, you're going to put me in a good home. You're not going to put me in the one we saw in 60 Minutes last week.
Well, she wasn't until you talked about the cat like that. And then now.
I talked about the damn cat.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck and Godspeed, my friend.
What is your perfect bug out scenario? In other words, you are facing a potential SHTF situation. I have always contended that bugging in should be plan A. Plan B should be bugging out. Are you set up so that you literally could just grab a couple of bags, throw a kid under each arm, maybe a cat, and run out the door?
Or pretty close. Yeah, I mean, our goal would be to bug in. I mean, all of our main supply stashes and everything else is much more set up here, you know, for us to do. And I think a lot of people do that as well. You can store more water, you can store more food, you can set up security differently. Like, it's just a better scenario if you can stay put, if that's something that works. But we have also set up so if we need to leave, we have things staged against our garage door. So we can literally back up the car, throw things into the trunk, throw things on the rack, and be gone, you know, pretty quickly. So, you know, that's another plan. Now, the problem is once you start going, I mean, you're going to be in traffic on the roads and all that. So, you know, bugging out is not ever really an ideal scenario unless you feel like you have a clear path to wherever you're going, or maybe you're going to an evacuation zone or something like that. But, you know, that's plan B, is throw everything in the car and go.
Let me ask you this. I am of the opinion, and I want to see what your opinion
Yeah.
is on this matter. I am of the opinion that one of the greatest lies on television is this show called The Walking Dead, because
That's
not
the
only
actual
are
zombie apocalypse.
these people are, first of all, they're stupid. They are just stupid. Okay, so you're in a zombie apocalypse, right? The hearts, they're not beating.
Mm-hmm.
They're just dead tissue walking around.
Yep.
Why are you staying where it's above freezing? All you have to do is go to a mountain where it's below freezing. Their tissue is going to freeze, and you can just start picking them off, right?
Well, I mean, first off, I mean, you have to assume that you enjoy eating zombie meat, frozen zombie meat, and that unheating would not come back to life as some sort of like a zombie part or something. I don't know. I think also, I think the scientific forethought in that is
scientific forethought.
Is giving a lot of you're being very generous with what people in a situation. If there are zombies, I don't know that I'm calculating the Fahrenheit to figure out at what point of altitude the zombies will die and I will be okay.
It's more of a temperature thing, because as soon as the dead skin starts to freeze, they're at least moving at a third of their pace. I mean, think about that for a second. At the very least, if not freezing completely.
Well, I mean, I think you make the point, maybe you need to get them into a lake or something, like a frozen pond or something, like, because even then they're still going to come after you. But you also then need to stay warm enough to not become freezing.
That's fine. I can deal with it. I have body heat.
Well, I mean, sure, for a short period of time, but you're talking about freezing them long term. Like, you need to be able to stay on that mountain for a while.
Well, we've kind of gone off topic a little bit, but
wait, zombie apocalypse isn't on topic? What's happening?
I don't know. I think maybe the show would get better ratings if it was just about zombies.
Possible.
But, who knows? But the thing about that show that gets me is they seem to have enough gasoline to last them to the next zombie apocalypse. And my issue is that if the power goes out, there ain't no pumps working. And whatever gas you have on yourself or on your vehicle or whatever, that's all the gas you got. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, just make sure your vehicle has, at least half a tank of gasoline in it. And I'm thinking, well, that's easy if it's, just after payday. But if you're, we're in a pandemic, a lot of people aren't working, and money can be a little tight, and the first thing that goes is gasoline. Do you have an idea, a plan, or anything to store gas long term? I've got a couple gas cans, and I keep them full. I keep them in the motorhome in case I need them at some point. What say you?
So I have some gasoline. I keep about 20 gallons, mostly because they're 5-gallon things and we got 4 of them. Gasoline is one of those things that I'm not great with yet, in that I get it and I plan to rotate it and I never do. And then like in 2 years, I'm like, okay, hey, we got to get rid of this gasoline and get new gasoline. So that's one of my my preparedness journey. Then one of those things I need to learn how to do better is to rotate gas. But yeah, so I try to, especially if there's something like, with COVID or something, I always try to keep our tanks above 50%, or try to refill them when they get to 50%. It's just less money you're spending every time you go to the gas station. And B, you've already filled it up. So you've already invested the money in that first tank. So really you're just talking about trying to kind of maintain over time. So I try to do that. I try to keep at least a full tank's worth of gas. So the 20 gallons will run either one of our cars fully for a full tank. So if we needed to, we could either fill up and go, or we could put them on a roof rack or something and go and then refill as we were driving.
Your gasoline plan sounds better than me. I really wish I could get a one of those 100 gallon tanks for just gasoline and throw it in my backyard.
Oh yeah.
And just fill it with gasoline when I can.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you've
What are
got
you gonna do?
an option with the limo service. I mean, you actually might go through 100 gallons. For me, if I put 100 gallons in the backyard, we back up to a wetlands, so I've got EPA problems all over the place. Secondly, we've got, you know, the gasoline goes bad at a certain point. So I put a stabilizing agent in the gas that we have, because it makes sense for 20 gallons. I don't know that it would make sense for 100 gallons unless you got really, really good at rotating and managing, you know, okay, I've used a half of a container and I need to go take that back to go refill. So you kind of have to have that plan in place. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to have it. I just don't know that we would go through it as fast as we would need to.
Yeah, it always seems to me like it's just one of those things that that people should think about, because when they watch the TV shows and the movies, everybody has plenty of gasoline and they can go anywhere they want.
Yeah.
Let's drive to Florida. Let's be the only people at Disneyland. That would be cool.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove, gasoline is going to be one of the most valuable things that people are going to be bartering for.
Well, and I also think that people forget that while they're trying to leave, you know, you're used to driving at, you know, full speed on a highway. You're getting way better gas mileage and all of that. If you're sitting and idling because everyone is on the freeway all trying to leave, you're burning gas idling on the freeway for hours and hours and hours. So, you know, that gas tank that you normally can get you, for example, in our case, could get us almost to Bend on a tank of gas, or pretty close to it, isn't going to make it there. I mean, we're maybe going to get to the mountains. We're not going to get over the mountains. So having that extra gas for that same trip, I think, is something people don't necessarily always think about.
Yeah, gasoline, and I think spare glasses, plenty of glasses.
Yep, exactly.
Reading glasses, because you don't want to end up like Burgess Meredith on the Twilight Zone.
No one wants to be blind and unable to read as the zombies are approaching you on the mountain. That's not a good. It's not a good thing to confuse the zombies for trees. It's not a good situation.
You can go ice fishing.
Yeah.
Sasquatch hunting or something. The website is cascadiadispatch.com. We've been speaking with Casey. Casey, thanks for coming on the show with us this week, or this episode. Or
thanks for having me.
This episode.
Yeah, exactly. This episode. It's been a blast. Thanks for having me. Hopefully we'll do it again.
Oh, yeah, we'll do it again, and we'll have you back on the show probably closer to the expo, and we can talk a little bit further then about anything that's changed in your prepping life.
Fantastic.
All right. Thanks again, and we'll see you later.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Bye.